Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the AUD podcast channel. I'm your host Khaled We are honored to have Khaled Kamel as our guest on the show today. Khaled has over 20 years of experience in business management and cybersecurity. He has held various regional senior managerial roles in multinational Fortune 100 organizations such as HP, Samsung, Lenovo, and more. In addition, he has his own consulting firm and is now the secretary and treasurer of the AUD Alumni Association, tasked with creating a strong alumni community. In this episode, you'll learn about the future of cybersecurity, the rapid advancement of technology, the differences between the corporate world and entrepreneurship, and how can we protect ourselves from cybersecurity threats. Please join me in welcoming to the show Mr. Khaled Kamel.
Thank you so much. I'm very proud to be here.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. So Khaled, me and you have a bit of a funny story. We actually met, I can't remember how long it was, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. You reached out to me. We were talking about, at the time, stuff to do with podcasting. I remember we did a mock interview where you interviewed me. So it was nice to be, now it's my turn to interview you.
True.
And Khaled, I know you have over 20 years of experience across many fields, but primarily, your expertise lies in tech and cybersecurity, and you've held top positions at, HP, Lenovo, Samsung, so you're in the tech world. And also you have a lot of experience in management and strategic consulting, which I think nowadays is very useful with people looking for different types of jobs, with freelancing. Like, how can organizations now retain employees? How should they be thinking about building their employees long term? So there's a lot of different areas, I want to touch on. But before we get into everything, Khaled, why don't you give all of us a little bit of background about yourself, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. So first and foremost, I'm actually a graduate of the American University in Dubai.
Yes, a fellow alumni, yes.
With a master in business administration, and that actually happened a very long time back. I don't want to say how long, but long enough.
Okay, sure.
And I'm very proud to be associated with the American University in Dubai. Also as a member of the Alumni Association, and we're trying to do whatever is within our capacity and a bit more to attract all the AUD graduates to come back to campus and see what's on offer for them, how the university can help them be more successful in their business, and learn more from fellow alumni. And one of the things that bring us to the topic of today, the field of cybersecurity, the field of management, and how to, like you said, retain employees, etc. So all of these are ideas that are spoken about within our meetings, and so on and so forth. So again, as a message to everyone, come back to the university, see how you can leverage your beloved campus, and see how fellow alumni could help you get going with your career.
Yeah, no, for sure. And what's interesting is, even, with my experience, working with AUD and so on, we've had a lot of guests, on the show that are AUD alumni, and I've been reflecting back on the last, year of that episodes that we've done, and almost half were alumni, and in different fields, different ages, different locations. It's really, the fact that we are all AUD alumni is that common thing that we share, which gives us that, relatability. We all went through similar things, in this kind of place. And talking about the Alumni Association, so I wanted to dive into that a little bit. So I know you're the secretary and the treasurer of the Alumni Association. Now, a couple of questions. So first of all, as the secretary and treasurer, what is your responsibility, and what is the reason you decided that you want to take up this role?
So I wanted to actually give back to the community and give back to the university and to fellow alumni. And I just didn't know how, and I wanted to contribute somehow. We got together, we started learning more about what the university offers today versus how it was 20 years ago. And we started, assigning roles and responsibilities. And actually, I want to say something about the role itself. It is really more of what we can contribute, regardless of the title. It is amazing to sit in a team of very enthusiastic people and contribute and share ideas and explore how we could be of benefit to other alumni. And it's proven to be really, really exciting and really, really amazing to want to do for others and to want to give back. And that's a feeling that is, in my opinion, and in the opinion of my colleagues in the association, is second to none.
Yeah.
So back to my role, I basically take care of the mainly the organization of things, like putting together all these minutes of meetings, follow-ups, so basically a secretarial role in the real sense. But of course, it's like I mentioned, titles are of insignificance here. Whoever can do something will do it. So I know that some of my colleagues have previously contributed to the minutes of meetings, have taken things that I would have supposed to be doing, but they've done it. I've also done things that they should have done, and so on. It doesn't really matter. We're all together in it, and we want success for everyone.
Yeah, and it seems like it's a shared collective, goal. Everyone in the association seems like they just want to give back. AUD gave so much to them, and it really gave so much to me as well, not just from an educational standpoint, but from the people I met. And the people I met here are not only some of my best friends today, they've become business partners, they've become, colleagues, so it's a very humbling, to look back at those days and to see where you are now, and that you still have that connection, and the people that you're working with are people from, where you shared those precious years with. It's a very nice feeling. I don't know, personally, I feel it's a very humbling feeling. How does it feel being part of the association?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like you rightly mentioned. First of all, coming, and I'll share with you a very vivid example of what happened the day the association had its first meeting. So we came to campus, and I was with another alumni who's not part of the association, but a good friend of mine since the MBA time. He was here, he's Emirati, and he's come back to campus for the first time in 20 years.
Wow.
Now imagine that, right?
Wow.
And poor guy, he couldn't stop his tears from shedding. He was reliving 20 years back. He was reliving all his MBA time, and has been, wanting to come to campus. And actually didn't get an opportunity, didn't get a chance to do so, didn't find a reason, according to him, to come back. But the moment he stepped in the university campus, he just couldn't stop crying. And he was laughing, and he was telling me, I don't know why I'm crying. I don't know why these tears are rolling. And, I said, it's just because you missed the place. You just didn't realize how much you missed it. But the moment you stepped in, all these good memories, all these, beautiful pictures that you had stored in your mind just started to come back real, and that's why these tears are coming. But just to remind everyone, if you're an alumni, feel free to come back to campus. You will find a very, very warm welcome.
Absolutely.
Yes. So back to career. I started working as a salesperson. Started selling IT actually, and
that's how I started too. Same thing.
Amazing. And I moved from one position to another, from one company to another. I worked for great organization. I was fortunate enough to join some of the world's biggest organizations, like you mentioned, HP, Samsung, Lenovo, etc. And I also held senior positions in those, which gave me exposure not only within the organization itself, but dealing with staff, dealing with colleagues at senior level from other regions, dealing with senior officials of countries and so on. That was really good exposure. And then, I moved on and moved ahead, and then, like you mentioned, started my own consulting business, which again is another exciting role, to sit with people and advise them and tell them how things need to be done and what are better ways of doing them and so on. So all of that actually reflected good. And as I was sharing with people, I myself also was learning. So learning doesn't stop. You continue to learn as you go. You research, because you want to be fit to your position. So you keep researching, you keep finding way, you keep exploring, finding those formula that work and the others that don't work and why and so on. It's an amazing path, if you will.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a nice puzzle to solve.
Absolutely. And by the way, of course, I'm more than happy and open to any of my alumni colleagues if they want to approach and get advice. They're most welcome. They can always reach out to me and ask questions.
I can attest to that, guys. Khaled is the guy. Trust me.
Thank you so much.
No,
Thanks.
of course. Credit where credit is due. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start, first of all, you touched on it a little bit. So I know you've held multiple high-level positions in HP, Lenovo, Samsung. You've been in the IT tech world for a while.
Right.
Now I started my career in that world as well. So my first year of my first job was working with Cisco, and I was in sales. So I was a competition at the time. But you also have your own consulting firm, and you've been running that for I think over 15 years now, something like that. So you have a lot of experience both in the corporate world and both as an entrepreneur yourself with your own business. So the question I have to you is, how would you compare those two experiences, and is there one that feels more natural to you or something that you enjoy more? Because I can imagine, obviously throughout your career, there's been times you're like, oh no, I want to be an entrepreneur, but then you're like, oh no, maybe this is actually a better idea. You jump back and forth between the two. So I'd love to hear just how you think of those two dynamics, and what can you share with us?
Every step along your path would contribute to the next. And so just to give you a flavor, so when I started my consulting firm, and I started researching and so on, and I touched a lot upon marketing, something that I didn't do as deep as when I started my own business, because I needed to market myself properly. I needed to let people know that I exist. Who would come and talk to such a small organization just started yesterday, and why would they risk? And that was a very big learning, because again, the human being by nature has a little bit of, self-confidence that build as you build your career and as you know more people. People want to talk to you. People knock on your door when you're at a senior level in a multinational organization and so on. On the contrary, your schedule is far more busy than you can afford. And so from such a position to being so available and so empty calendar, and nobody wants to talk to you because you already left that position. It turns out that people are not after you, but after your position.
Interesting.
Yes. And then you start trying to, cruise your way through in order to have some attention from the same people that used to run after you and not find you because you were too busy. And now you're running, in the opposite direction, trying to catch up with them, and, they may or may not entertain you. But again, it's the pull versus the push in the market. And that's a very vivid way of looking at it, because it just reminds me after I left HP and went to work for Lenovo, and at that time, Lenovo was not yet known. It's not the Lenovo you know today, right? And so, the pull versus the push, the brand that everybody runs after and must have versus the brand that no one heard of, and you want to position it, but people are so resistive to it. Same thing, when you start your own business, you have that passion, you want to grow it, it's your baby, you want to give it all the attention. You're not tied by working hours, you basically work weekends, this, that. And again, if you're not careful with your life work balance, it becomes challenging to your family, to your friends, and you would sacrifice a lot of things to grow that business. And but again, it's really worth it, of course, at the end of the day. So whether you become successful and build, and maybe even from a financial perspective, you start to become a little bit independent. You're not waiting for that salary at the end of the month. Every opportunity you're looking at it as your own financials versus someone else's, but you are salaried at the end of the month versus the open income opportunity, and nobody limits your income except you, right? You work harder, you earn harder, and you enjoy more. Reminds me of how a lot of people also have not realized this fact. A lot of people that are not just ready to own their own business jump in that path, and then they realize that, oops, I don't have enough resources, or I don't have enough money, or bank will not lend me, and so on and so forth. But these are all the kind of advices that we give our fellow entrepreneurs before they start, because if you're not ready, don't start. That's my advice. But again, back to your point, it's quite exciting to become an entrepreneur and then jump back into the work, the style, being an employee, being employed again, to work for somebody. Just like I did just recently, I joined an amazing company that specializes in cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. And cybersecurity, as you know, is a very, very important area to learn about and to know about and to actually practice in order to defend everything around you, including your own home and your family and so on, against all of these malwares and against fraud and. So I mean, it's an exciting area, and going back to work for a company. But again, the key point here is to become selective. So when you select to leave, yes, of course, you leave your own business to work for someone else. Is not an easy decision, and it's not an easy, thing to do, because to practice also, to become an employee again and to be told what to do versus being the one that tell people what to do and so on. Yeah. It requires certain capabilities and certain talents and certain adaptabilities. So not everyone can actually do this. And again, it's a matter of mindset, practice, training, all of that.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting, because I didn't expect you to say that. Because I'm in like, let's say, second year of like my consulting business. Okay, I'm kind of like where, like, when you started, you probably have or felt all the things that I'm feeling these days, and you touched on them. All the people that once upon a time were like dying for your attention, and now you're chasing them and they don't want to talk to you anymore. Karma, what are you going to do? But for me, I'm speaking from personal experience. Like my you never know what's going to happen in the world, but my biggest fear is that I would go back and go back into that world. I don't know if it's because it's a fear of failure, that's what I'm afraid of, or is it I just I don't want to be in that structure anymore. I want to build, things myself and do things myself. So I look at it, if I went back and got a job, is there a possibility? Absolutely. Would I be happy about it? I would be, I think, very upset. But you said you went back and it was, you said something key though. You said, if I'm leaving what I'm doing and what I love to go back and get a job that's, I'm working now for someone else, then yeah, I better be damn selective about, that choice, because it has to be worth it at the end of the day.
The people you work for, the company itself, what they do, if you have passion to what they offer as well. Cybersecurity had always been an area that I wanted to associate myself with. I knew everything about IT, I knew networking, but I didn't really engage deep enough in the cybersecurity arena, which is, quite, as you know, nowadays, quite really exciting. I was involved in a court case not too long ago. I was actually acting as an expert to advise the court who's right and who's wrong. And basically, it was involving impersonating someone and acting as if they were themselves. And it was up to the court to really see if that was a real case of impersonation or was it a case of hacking or so the court of course the court is competent in the legal matters, but in technical matters they were not, of course, that competent, and they wanted to come to an expert. And I did a lot of research. I have passion for security overall. I hate hacking and I hate impersonation. And I personally suffered from being hacked. And so it left a very sour taste.
I'm sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did everything in my capacity to write a good report to the court in order to nail the bad guys, right? Mm-hmm. And so comes the opportunity that I'm myself involved deeper in cybersecurity, and I jumped to it. First of all, the learning, and the company was accommodating enough to understand that I do not have the right background in security, but I had the right background in IT and relationships in the market and so on. And so it was a win-win. Mm-hmm. And that's also something to look for. It has to be a win-win, otherwise it fails as well, and that becomes a real fear of failure. Mm-hmm. But again, having said so, when it's a win-win, and you go there with an understanding, nothing to hide, So when I met the owner of that organization, I said, look, you know that I do not come from this industry. There's nothing wrong to be very open about it.
Absolutely not.
Yes. And then he made the decision. He looked also at experience and many other factors. So he also was very open-minded. He approached the opportunity with, looking at what we could do together rather than what I can do for them, or what why would the company need someone like me, and so on. So again, it's a good thing to go back to being an employee when you will be doing something passion. You have
something you're passionate about.
Something you're passionate about, and something that will keep you excited and motivated, rather than sitting saying, "Oh, what did I do?"
There you go. Yeah, that fear of that regret, or like, "Oh, why did I make this decision?" I think, as we all know, hindsight's always 20/20. It's always so clear in the future, but in the moment, it's always very challenging. And you touched on cybersecurity and technology, so let's get into it now. So I don't have any cybersecurity experience, but I know about it because of working in a company like, Cisco during that time. So I remember, selling, like enterprise solutions and umbrella and this and that. And what surprised me was not only at the level, the size of the space, but the level of technological advancements. From month to month, we'd get reports about, there's this new thing we have to know. There's this new thing, you guys need to know this when you're speaking to clients. Make sure these are the new details, these are the new threats, and so on. And now I've watched many, many podcasts about, tech and AI, because I'm very interested. I'm a very curious person, so I want to learn. And, it seems that collectively from, I would say, people that we should probably listen to, it seems that technology is advancing at an incredibly, rapid rate, faster than we can even keep up. And everyone is saying everyone is saying that's great, but we should be very cautious with this, because now we've seen AI. A year ago, the word AI, sure, if in your field it was something probably very known, whatever, but now everyone knows it. Not just everyone knows it, everyone uses it. I use it for multiple things and so on. So the argument is okay, guys, we need to slow it down because we don't know it's advancing so fast, we don't know what the outcome is. But the pushback is going to be from companies, because I get their point of view. They're going to be like, fine, but what about if he's not going to slow down? If he doesn't slow down, he's going to get an advantage, and then I'm going to lose business, and then that's going to trickle out. So the question then becomes, I'm like, okay, we need caution, but it seems like no one's going to be willing to actually like take that caution unless maybe government step in. So what are your thoughts? I'd love to hear what you think about this, because I don't even know what which way we should go.
On artificial intelligence
in this example, I don't know which way we should go about this.
See, we always have to be also careful, because you would have seen a lot of videos, for example, again, back to the topic of impersonation.
Deep fakes and so on, yeah.
Yes, and, social engineering and all that. It's really, we need to be cautious, extra cautious, and we need to educate ourselves and our families on, the ultimate result of all of these technologies that are being used. So some people use technology for good, and some people use technology for bad and for taking advantage of others that are peacefully browsing the internet. There are training courses and certifications and all of that at all levels. So even at student level, people could start learning how to defend themselves against such crimes. The other thing is, back to your question of the advancement. Advancement is scary.
Exactly, yeah.
It's running at a speed of no catch, and like you try to really figure out how did that happen. I mean, I've seen a scary video, right, of people that very very well known figures, political and otherwise, and you hear the things that they are saying, and you say, wait a minute, there's no way this person would have said so, and then you find out that it was really a built-up video and fake and based on artificial intelligence, but tells you how scary things could get. And what better than equipping yourself with the necessary knowledge and training in order to, protect yourself, protect your loved ones against all of these. We've heard of ransomware, for example.
Yeah.
And for the listeners, if anyone is not really familiar with what ransomware is, it's when somebody attacks a company and steals data or deprive companies of their own data and ask for money in return of giving back the data and so on. And there are ways to stop these things from happening. People need to learn also where to look, who to ask, who to rely on in order to protect their interests, their assets against ransomware, malware, all of that.
Yeah. And you touched on, cybersecurity, and I didn't know there were so many levels of like certifications you could get from like a student, and up on how to defend yourself and so on. And when it comes to cybersecurity and AI, I'd love to hear your perspective, because I see it in two different ways. I'm like, is AI going to be a positive for cybersecurity and our security, or is it going to be a negative? Because I can see it going both ways, because I can see an AI that trains, learns, and then keeps learning how to break a system. And I can also see another AI being put against that one to come up with solutions that this one's, creating. So I don't know if it's going to be a positive or a negative. What do you think?
That's an amazing question, Khaled. Let me tell you. So, for example, I personally am working with a tool, and that tool is artificial intelligence / machine learning based. A lot of the tools in the market are based on scripts, static scripts. So basically the system administrator, or in this case the security manager, would sit and define certain rules, configure the system, if you will, to do things, the if-then rule, right?
So like that flow diagram, like the arrow, if no, goes down. And
Absolutely.
Then gotcha.
Absolutely. So if this happens, do this and this and that, right? Now, of course, in the past, things used to be Well, I would say almost. Well, there were factors that were done manually. Now almost everything is automated. But then, of course, the new thing that we're looking at is the machine learning part and algorithms, smart algorithms based on artificial intelligence. What you do is you feed in the system with certain playbooks. And then, you're really telling the system how to behave. If this happens, do 1, 2, 3. But then the beauty here is, like you mentioned, with artificial intelligence and using these tools positively and machine learning, what happens is that the system itself starts to learn. So let me give you a vivid example. You, for example, log into the university's network. You are part of the university. You're known, but you're known to access the university, let's say, from 9 to 5. All of a sudden, the university gets an alert that Khaled is accessing at 11 p.m. and is actually browsing certain files. Now, certain security measures would block Khaled. Why? Because the system is designed, somebody logs in from outside of the university network through, let's say, a different IP address. They would block the network. They would block the port. They would block, or they might even shut down the server in some cases, just to protect the best interest of the university. But today, you're able to identify, oh, wait a minute, this is Khaled. This is somebody who's known to us. This is somebody safe. And he wants to browse, and he's browsing normal files that he browses from 9 to 5. So what's wrong about that? Why shut down the network? Why shut down the server? Continue to browse, Khaled. You're safe. You're fine. There is an alert given, but it's there, but it doesn't stop the business, if you will.
Sure.
So, and that happens as and when the solution or the software learns, what's going on, and Khaled is safe. He logged in from the first attempt. There wasn't many, let's say, trial and error with passwords and stuff like that. So it goes from one algorithm to another until it allows Khaled to browse safely. Like I said, it keeps a record of it. So the alert is there, the log is there, but it doesn't do something nasty to stop the business.
Yes. But
Right?
it gets smarter because it knows now, like, this is how Khaled behaves. This is how he acts. So anything that's maybe too far out of this typical behavior is going to be a problem.
True.
Yeah.
Yes.
And with cybersecurity and with AI, you said something earlier, and I think I've never asked someone this because I've always assumed they're either the same thing or one is the underlying technology of the other. Is AI and machine learning, are they the same thing, or is, because machine learning seems, okay, the system trains itself, it gets smarter, but I'm like, but isn't that what AI does? So is there a difference between AI and machine learning, or are they the same thing but being said differently?
They are different.
Oh, they are? Okay, interesting.
They are different. So artificial intelligence basically is what the word actually implies. So it's basically, let's picture it as if it's a brain behind things. So it's a set of software that tends to think near human, of course, based on science and based on a lot
Data
of technology
and stuff, yeah.
and so on. But they would take a set of data and analyze it and arrive at a decision. Machine learning, on the other hand, would actually continue to get better as you go. Let me give you a vivid example of a best used that, let's say, big organization that worked in, let's say, voice to text or text to voice. So when we started looking at text to voice, for example, you would feed your software with some text, and then you would have a boring voice talking like this, and But then, as we developed, so how did we develop? Machine learning, right? So it started to learn impressions. So it started to add impression to your voice as it read the text, and it became much more mature, and it continues to become more mature even further. Now, like you saw, there were videos being released that show facial expressions. I mean, we started with eye blinks, right? And now it's eye rolling. And
Very true.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
true.
So, yeah.
Do you think that because with AI and with like all these potential security threats and cybersecurity, I believe, you know, speaking personally, and I think in general, I think a lot of the, I'm gonna quote air quotes, guys, general public, we don't really have even a foundation level, you know, understanding of, you know, cybersecurity. You know, I know obviously you know about malware, ransomware, and so on, but you don't know. Like I don't know how, for example, where I'm vulnerable. I don't know how to, you know, protect myself better more than like having an antivirus if it does anything, and like two-factor authentication. So I feel this is an area that has there's a lot of misconceptions about it, and there's a lot of vulnerabilities. So could you tell us what, from your perspective, you think are the most common misconceptions when it comes to cybersecurity, and what like common vulnerabilities are there that we are exposed to that maybe we are not even aware of?
That's an amazing question, Khaled, because I see this again all the time. You'll be very surprised to know I visited some organizations, and I would say mid-sized, small and medium businesses, 500-600 users on the network. So that's not very small, but also not so large. And I was shocked when I talked to IT people in that organization and to the level of IT managers, and they mistake antivirus for cybersecurity. So they think they are secure because they have an antivirus running on their network.
Yes.
And that is something totally different. You know, like if somebody wants to hack you, whether you have an antivirus or not is out of the question. That's something else. That's something totally different.
Okay, this is brand new information to me, guys. Like my eyes are up. Okay, please explain. Please explain, because I never knew that. I thought your whole life, you know, antivirus is like, you know, the medicine for this.
So there is internet security, of course, and then maybe as a side product to that would be the antivirus. But,
okay.
But sure, I mean, some antivirus are smart enough to have, you know, anti-malware and all that. There are very, very sophisticated, you know, endpoint security software and so on. But it's really much, much more than that. And another area that you find that people are maybe a little unaware of is the data classification. Data classification is extremely important, and you protect your assets through classifying your data and how to store them and how to protect them and so on and so forth. Let me give you an example.
Yeah, please.
In your organization, or let's say even here at the university, there will be some common files that even the university would put to public on their website. Those are public access documents. There's nothing wrong with that. But there are confidential information. Staff salaries, I don't know, transactions with banks, you know, things related to internal memos, strategy, meeting minutes, all of that. You know, these are highly confidential documents that you don't want your competitor to put their hands on. And how do you protect these documents? And where do you store them? How do you make sure that when you store them, your storage actually is safe? How do you know that if you back up these documents, you'll be able to restore them? So all of that falls under the overall information security. Because you could back up as much as you want, but then if you're not able to restore, then what good is your backup for you?
True, true.
So these are the things that we need to look into, and there are many, many tools. And like you rightly said, the training would give you exposure
Exactly.
to all of these areas that you say, gee, I didn't know that, and I better get knowing, you know, like, yeah.
And so I understand I love the example you use. I get that for an organization, you know, they have to have an overall information security system, and that has to be different levels and different data classifications and so on. So organizations, I understand. what would you advise to someone like me, just, a normal person, on what are like maybe key things that these are the bare minimum you should have in place to, protect yourself?
First of all, what we use on a daily basis is our emails.
Yes.
Please be very extremely careful with emails, because emails are the way into your life. If a hacker gets hold of your email, they can get access to everything else that you have. And your email is on your phone, your email is on your laptop, your tablet, whatever device you're using. Don't click before you're sure 200% that that link is a legitimate, genuine link. And how do you verify? Just stand on the link, just hover over the link and see where it will take you. And be sure that it's taking you where it promises to take you, not anywhere else. Just hover over it, see what happens at the bottom of your browser, or maybe at the side of your mouse, and just make sure you're going to a place that you know is safe for you. Many people got hacked through undesirable links that they clicked in confidence on, and they were taken elsewhere.
Yeah.
The other thing, be very careful with email addresses. Now, let's say your email is Khaled at so-and-so. Make sure that Khaled is spelled correctly. Make sure it is not Khaled 1, is not Khaled A, is not, all of these things. Just pay attention, guys. Pay more attention. Give it an extra half a second to verify so that you continue to be safe. Yes.
My mind is blown right now because I've never even heard about hovering and checking. This is all brand new to me. So like now thinking in my emails, I'm like, I usually just like click,
Yes.
clicks open.
Yeah.
But now I will definitely be keeping that in mind, moving forward. I wanted to touch on, a bit about your management, and strategic consulting, experience. So I saw actually you're currently undergoing your PhD in or management in organizational leadership at the, I think, University of Arizona, if I'm not mistaken.
Phoenix.
Sorry, Phoenix. Damn.
Yes, it is in Arizona.
Yeah, exactly. And so my question to you is, because for someone to, this is my perspective, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because you're in it, and I've spoken to other people who have PhDs. To go through a PhD, either is one of two things. Either you genuinely are you love this field and you want to, become like the number one or best you can and go as deep as you can. I get that. But from another perspective, I'm like, is it because you have to come up with a new thesis, if I'm not mistaken, right? Create a new prompt, like, what if this happened in the world? Would it, does this hold, does this not? So my question to you is, what is the reason you decided to, start it now? Or I don't know when you started it, but I think you're going to complete it in a few years. What is the reason you decided to get into it? And what are you hoping for the outcome to be?
So basically, the very motive behind starting a PhD was to learn more. I wanted to, so this is also why I did the MBA in the first place. I wanted to know what the book says. This saying, we'll do it by the book.
Yeah.
I wanted to know where that book was, and I wanted to read that book, for God's sake. And I thought the MBA was a good venue to start looking at those books.
Sure.
And sure, it was a good decision, especially at the AUD. And the PhD is the continuation of that, the continuity. You want to learn more. You're hungry for more knowledge. The challenging thing about the PhD is that, like exactly you described, you have to come up with some new conclusions. You need to arrive at some new discoveries. So you do a lot of research, and you learn a lot about what exists in order to put together what doesn't exist yet and make it exist. And so by analyzing and by reading and by listening and by talking to fellow colleagues and learning. And one of the things that you learn a lot, Khaled, in doing a PhD is being humble. I remember we took a course in the first year that just teaches you how to be humble. How that when you become a PhD, when you are a doctor in what you do, and that's the highest authority as far as education.
Absolutely.
And how when you are at that level, you actually go down and realize that what you know is nothing compared to what's available and what's out there. What you know is very little compared to what's on the shelves as far as all of these researches and books, and it's amazing. And it's such a great feeling that when you realize that, you let your ego. A lot of people, have ego and they haven't even finished their bachelor's. and,
Been there, I can't lie. I was once upon a time, for sure. I was.
Well, human nature, Khaled.
It's normal.
You're not alone. And I was like that as well. But, as you mature and as you cruise through your career and as you learn more, you really find out, gee, I know very little. And, but the feeling of being humble and advising others and sharing your expertise and so on, such an amazing internal feeling that gives you in itself a lot of pride that you were able to service someone, or you're able, or in a case of business, when you take an organization from being loss generating year after year to being, at the peak of success and turning things around and making it profitable from, the first few months and so forth. It's such an amazing feeling that you would have contributed to others in order for them to succeed and enjoy life. Because, when people are in loss, they aren't so, in a good mood. They are rather depressed.
Sure.
And they affect everyone around them. Yes. So, sure, the PhD learning. I also wanted to give a lesson to my kids. Learning never stops. And, you needed to walk the talk. It's not just by saying, it's by doing. Mm-hmm. So yes, and I'm moving very, very slow, very turtle slow, but I'm doing it, right? But again, you do what's in your capacity, you do what you can do. And time allowing, I'll cruise faster. But if you're tight on time, what can you do? And the university understands that and allow you the time frame. They realize that.
Yeah.
Because typically, if you are enrolled in a PhD in certain other programs, you have to dedicate yourself to the PhD. You cannot work, you cannot do anything else. And, that's because it's very time consuming.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we had another previous alumni on the AUD podcast, and I had her on mine as well. And she got a PhD in engineering. And she was telling me, she's kind of similar like you. She really loved the field. She did her master's, and she never really thought about doing a PhD. But her professor was like, "You've already done, so much like in this. If you just, why don't you do a PhD? You add maybe another 2 years or something, but you've already done a lot of, like the work that will help you in this." And, she decided to do it. And she said that it's kind of the same thing like you. It's like very humbling experience. Learned so much, and when you have to like defend your thesis and like that, when you have to sit and like in front of a panel and defend your points and stuff, I can imagine that could be very intimidating, frustrating, nervous. So, I don't take anything away from that. But it's interesting, usually, correct me if I'm wrong, you'd probably know more. Usually people who do a PhD will go like bachelor's, master's, PhD, like, and then into maybe whatever field they're going to go into. You did bachelor's, master's, worked for like 20 years, and then you're like, okay, now's the time, to go back. So is it more common for people to go in that first route, that just 1, 2, 3, and then you go, or is it more doesn't matter what point, people come back and want to do it?
Spot on, Khaled. It's something that I've thought a lot about before applying for my PhD. Between my bachelor and my master's, there were 14 years.
Oh wow! Okay, I didn't know. Okay, my bad. Okay.
But and that's a stretch. I probably was the oldest in my MBA class. Or second oldest, just to be very, very exact. But things like that do happen. So people work and work more and work, until they realize that, maybe I need to study a little bit more. Maybe I need to complement this with a degree. In this case, I'm not doing the PhD for my CV. I'm not doing the
Sure.
PhD to maybe go and get employed based on the PhD. But like I said, it's for more learning, for the passion of, really education. And also, like I said, to challenge my kids and teach them that life is a lifelong journey of learning, and
Absolutely.
they need to continue to learn.
Yeah.
That's my message to not only my children but everyone out there.
Everyone out there. And what's funny is it seems like we couldn't have picked a better guest for the show, because the aim of the AUD podcast is word for word what you said. So a question that we ask all our guests at the end of the show is usually, so the message of the AUD podcast is always, success comes in many forms and learning never stops. And you've touched on learning never stops multiple times. And we've had lots of guests, amazing guests and alumni on the show, and you see every single person has a different story. Every single person has a different learning. And I know through your life you learn many, 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 many things. But I usually ask my guest what is, if you had to pick one. I know it's very difficult, but if you had to pick one, what was that game changer learning, or that lesson that you learned at one point in, your life or your career, that, when that ceiling breaks and you see life in now a completely different way, and it just takes you to that next level. It sounds like your lesson was that never stop learning. That's what it sounds like. So if that's what it is, great, and would love to hear more about that. But if not, then what would you say is the game changer learning that you've had?
See, even if I could also say this in Arabic, قل هل يستوي الذين يعلمون والذين لا يعلمون. So it is actually, there is a difference between people that know and people that do not know. It's funny when you sit across from people that do not know and pretend to know, and try to convince you that they know, and that they know that they don't know. And then it becomes rather, interesting to see what the end of that is. But seriously, if you, like you said, if you take learning as, the more, it's a set of more books that you read, and now even you could listen to, right?
Yeah, true.
Yes. But again, I was just reading a book outside of the PhD, it's not an academic book, but it's call it a life coaching style book. And it talks about a very interesting topic that I personally wrote a book about, let's say 10 years ago, which is no excuses. And I remember when I worked in management in corporate, in the corporate world, I was telling my teams, there are two things that I go by. There is no tomorrow, and there are no excuses. If you go by these two rules, Khaled, you will break walls. You will conquer any challenge you face in stopping you from doing what you believe is the right thing to do to succeed.
Sure.
And so if you really think of, why didn't I do so? What was the excuse? So you become alert to your own excuses that stopped you from doing things.
Yeah.
A very good colleague of mine from the AUD and a very good friend of mine, we're working together in putting an event, and hopefully we'll share it with the AUD pretty soon, that talks about the abundance, opportunities that are out there, and opportunities that are out there in abundance versus scarcity, and how a human being, by default of being, whether it is a lazy person or an ignorant or whatever, would actually tend to stop themselves from enjoying success by building their own set of excuses, whether they are aware or not aware. So the subconscious mind plays a huge role in that.
Massive.
And yes, and this is your area actually.
Yeah.
and then how you become alert to those excuses and demolishing them as you go in order to achieve what you want to achieve or what you have to achieve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No excuses, no tomorrow. Now, first of all, I love that. And the message I think that you're trying to get across is probably what was, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, so sorry guys, but it's a new guest. That my game changer learning in my life was accountability. And from those rules that you have, that's kind of what you're trying to say, be accountable and, get it done. There's no need to wait till tomorrow, get it done now.
Absolutely.
But I will say this, I will caveat this, because I'm just going to speak from personal experience. No excuses, no tomorrow, fine. Accountability has been a game changer for me. However, I've learned, especially over this last year in life, that there's levels to this game. In every single thing in life, there's levels. For example, you hate coffee. I also hate coffee. But you might hate coffee on level 5. I may hate coffee on level 2. So there's levels to this thing. Now, what I learned of what I've had in my experience when it comes to accountability, while it's been a massive positive on my life, it's also, I think, I went too far. Because now I struggle because now I'm probably too hard on myself. I'm over accountable, no excuses, whatever. I understand everything you can't control. What happens to you, obviously, but you can control how you can react, and taking accountability helps you take back that power from whatever that situation is. But I think not just with accountability, but in general, I think you have to manage whatever it is that you're going to do, because it can easily fall into, that other extreme, which you don't want as well. So I don't know, what do you think?
I mean, it's definitely a very valid point that you touched upon, and it affects a rather big, huge number of people. And again, it's the ability to find out. It's the ability to become alert to, where is this taking me? Where, okay, I'm accountable, and like you rightly said, up to which point? I'm not here to say you guys go overwork yourself, or because we're saying there is no tomorrow, this means that you don't sleep at night, or far from that. But again, you take the spirit of the meaning. Do not take the literal meaning and drill into it until you overkill yourself. That's not the purpose.
Exactly. Yeah.
So becoming alert, and alert makes you more organized, and being more organized makes you more productive. So it's a loop, but it all depends on being alert to what you are. So where am I in this step? Where am I going? Where was I? Am I on the right direction? Is this the right way of doing it? Is there any other way of doing it? And so on. So it's really, again, back to learning. And how do you decide? How do you decide that this is the right way or wrong way? This is learning, experience, and so on. And there's nothing wrong with making mistakes.
Absolutely.
And there is nothing wrong with admitting mistakes.
Absolutely as well.
But then again, that's back to the topic of being humble.
Yes.
So who doesn't make mistakes? And you know how many people I sit across the table from, Khaled, and they want to convince you that they've never done mistakes. I mean, come on. What are you trying to say?
Yeah. And so you mentioned being humble. Now, the way you've described being humble is the way that, that's my perspective on it too. I think about it in exactly the same way. Now, again, we're going to go, this is another example. Like, okay, there's accountability, but then there's being too hard on yourself. So being humble, I did a workshop a few months ago, a personal branding workshop and like a sales workshop with this incredible guy. And then I had him on my own podcast, which was amazing. And he's like, being humble has always, in my whole life, I've seen it, oh, that's how you should be, positive. Being humble is a positive thing. You don't need to be flashy, you don't need to do like all these things, blah, blah, blah. But he's like, but there's a flip side to that. He's like, you being humble now, and I've realized it in my own life, that means I feel I have I feel weird if I talk about like, myself like proudly, or, the things that I've achieved, or, this is what I'm doing, or I have this and so on. And on the accountability point on this, where I struggle, or where I think a lot of us struggle, is when you feel you can see both sides and you feel both things, but you don't know which way, you're going to tip.
You know how many people are afraid to talk about the good in them, or what they can do in a good way, or what they are talented in?
My question is, sorry to interrupt you, Khaled. My question is, I've never understood, even for myself, I don't understand why. Like, I've always believed that I don't want to market myself. I will keep doing my work and the work will speak for itself. But I've learned, unfortunately, the hard way that that's not enough. I have to market myself. I have to put myself out there. I have to be doing these things. But it goes against, that mindset of like being humble. The humble guy doesn't, it kind of, conflicts with this. It kind of goes against what being humble represents.
Different meaning of the words. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, have you ever been in a job interview?
Yes.
And I'm sure the listeners, most of them have been in job interviews. What do you say in a job interview? I'm not going to talk about myself. I'm too humble. I cannot talk about myself. I mean, so basically,
Someone please do that in an interview and let us know.
Exactly. Or somebody, and this is vivid for people that are, out of college and they are starting to build families and they're going to get married and so on. So somebody going to ask for a girl's hand would go and not talk about themselves with his future in-laws. So you need to be able to talk about yourself. You need to be able to highlight the good and the bad in yourself. Like there is nothing wrong. I remember when I was going to service or organizations that called me for consulting, and they would ask me to do things, and I would say, look, this is not my specialty. Let's call those people. They might be better at it. And the guys would look at me, like very astonished. But you're a consultant. Well, I'm a consultant in this area. This is my specialty.
Exactly.
Let's say in marketing or in management or in HR. But don't ask me about manufacturing because that's not my area.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I recently had this experience, with the client. And besides, I was telling them, like, guys, listen, you want this? I did this for you out of, extra, okay? You want this technical thing now done to the video. I can't do that. I can't do that for you, So, and I don't want to, and I think to extract from what you're saying and from what I'm saying is, and one of the first lessons I learned, in sales was to say, like, if you don't know, say, I don't know. Be honest about it, because kind of like what you said, people can see through when you're coming up with all these, film Hindi style things. Yes, and I did this, and oh my God. And it's very challenging to not, I think for some people sometimes to put your hand up and be like, I don't know, because they might see like, oh, I don't know me is like a very negative thing and so on. But I think saying I don't know gives me the chance to learn about, I'm like, oh, you asked me about this, I don't know. tell me about it.
Absolutely.
Let me learn about it.
And Khalid, it's it's the other way as well. The response of the receiving party. So when you tell someone, I don't know, and they say, you don't know? How could you not know? I mean, I'm telling you, I don't know. Fine. You know what? I'm very bad. Tell me. Educate me. And, it's really sick on the part of those people that when they hear that someone doesn't know, and they just want to take it against them. Okay, nobody knows it all, and there is nothing wrong with not knowing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not knowing is the place that we all start anyway, before we know, right?
Absolutely.
Khaled, I want to be conscious of our time. I wanted to say, first of all, it's funny how the world works and how life works, and how we met like a while ago, we spoke, and now here I am. It's the other way around. So it's just funny how things work out. Me and you, I've always had, I think, since day one, we've got along, very well. I think we think very similar in certain ways. You have a lot of interesting ideas that I don't even think about. So it's all
we have the same name.
We have the same name too. We have the same name too. We should have started there. But I wanted to say, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for giving back, to the AUD community. Myself as an alumni and the rest of us all appreciate, the time and effort and the work that you do. And guys, any alumni, please make sure either to check out the Alumni Association, through the website, or reach out to, Khaled himself if you need anything. And I just wanted to say thank you for being, honest, open, humble, and, vulnerable with me, and really teaching me a lot today about so many different things, about security. Now I'm going to be super hectic about my Gmail. Don't click. And management, consulting, people interaction, and, so much more. It's really been a very, well-rounded and very, very interesting conversation. So I wanted to say thank you so much for coming. And if people want to reach out with you, connect with you, work with you, how can we get in touch?
So sure. First of all, through my AUD email that is working. My first name dot my last name at mymail.aud.edu. LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. Khaled Kamel. And and through the university, if you ask the university to connect you through the Alumni Association, we're all here to serve you. So reach out. Khaled, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Always a pleasure to talk with you. And, it's amazing that the AUD is doing this, and I really appreciate it. But this is not new to AUD, and it's an amazing university. I love it. Yeah,
that's why we all came here.
Yes.
Khaled, thank you so much for coming on the show, and inshallah, we'll see you again soon.
Inshallah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the AUD podcast channel. We really hope that you enjoyed it and learned something from it. We have a lot of incredible guests lined up for you on the show, and we're so excited to bring you their inspiring stories. To stay up to date with all the latest episode releases, please make sure to like, share, follow, and subscribe to the podcast on the AUD Instagram page at AUD Dubai.